And I do want to bring in our next guest to talk more about these markets. Eva Agi, an investment advisor representative at Gerber, Kawasaki Wealth and Investment Management. It's good to have you with me this morning. So stock futures are declining. They're pulling back amid several risk factors on the docket. Walk us through them.
So this is not unprecedented. We had a lot of volatility last week, especially, as you said, with the storming of the Capitol, impeachment proceedings being brought up. So I anticipate a little bit of volatility in the beginning of the week. But that said, the market is forward looking, so we can anticipate a recovery sooner rather than later.
So I think what was shocking is that before the violent chaos broke out, before a second impeachment of the president was on the docket or even invoking the 25th Amendment, there were growing calls, loud calls from almost every markets guest that we had on Cheddar in the final 2 weeks of December that we were due for a pullback. The market got ahead of itself. Investors were too exuberant, especially in some of these names like Tesla, for instance. So knowing that, do you anticipate that on a valuation standpoint, some of these risk factors that didn't affect the market last week could become exacerbated in the weeks ahead?
I do, and I think that if you look at the overall stock market, the digital space has been doing incredibly, almost too well. But Main Street is still suffering, and that's going to be priced into the market. So overall, we can anticipate some volatility in the first and second quarter of this year. However, there's still a lot to look forward to with the new Biden administration, a support of Congress, and stimulus being passed out. So I do think that we'll see some of those numbers start to settle in 2021.
So, of course, we are going to hear from Joe Biden this week, the president-elect, on his stimulus plans. But it does seem as if there is some worry, Eva, that because of impeachment moving forward and because of the chaos that is erupted and the concerns of more violence ahead of the inauguration, that could delay any future stimulus. Do you agree with that?
I think that Congress is going to be incentivized to provide stimulus, especially with the new Biden administration, but also on the Republican side, they want to provide that too. So I think that both parties are incentivized to work through that. However, COVID's going to take the seat here. So dealing with that is going to be the number one factor that legislators are going to look to before stimulus. So as we're able to roll out the vaccine, if we can do that quickly and efficiently, I think that stimulus will follow suit, no matter if the president or the president-elect is taking the seat.
When it comes to stimulus, what do you anticipate? We've heard differing perspectives, some anticipating checks of $1,400, which when you add that to the $600 that we saw finally approved at the end of December, that would equate to the $2,000 that some Americans had been anticipating and planning for. Other calls for $2,000 stimulus checks. When you look at the comprehensive plan, what it could look like, Eva, what are you anticipating?
I'm anticipating that we won't exactly get the answer we're looking for. You know, we thought beforehand that we'd get a $2,000 stimulus check, no problem. But recently with Congress, we found that no, not everyone's on board with that. So I anticipate it will be slightly less than the $2,000 total. Somewhere in the middle is my guess.
And we've heard about the growing connect. We've certainly seen it with our own eyes and in the data, the growing disconnect between Wall Street and Main Street. Sentiment, how is that impacted in the wake of what happened last week? And do we finally start to see sentiment, right? Just the overall feeling of the American public play out in the stock market? We're already seeing top businesses, banks pulling political donations to both parties, Marriott, Blue Cross pulling donations to the Republican Party, and then the PGA canceling a championship at a Trump golf course. Does sentiment start to weigh?
Absolutely. I think the stock market is extremely emotional, especially in the short run. However, there is still a lot on the horizon to keep into account. So we're on the heels of a storming of the Capitol. That's not something that we can discount easily. This was a pretty much disaster overall. But as a country, we're starting to come together. In the long run, I don't foresee this volatility being impactful. But in the short run, absolutely, this week, the next 2 weeks, as the new Biden administration takes hold, I do see volatility ahead there.
All right, Eva Agi, investment advisor representative at Gerber Kawasaki Wealth and Investment Management. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.